did this improv festival in Austin, Texas called Big Stinkin' Improv Festival, and that was our first exposure to actually long-form improvisation. And we took a workshop with Del Close.
Del is everything and nothing that you've heard.
Yeah.
He was a guy who inspired you. He was a guy who had a lot of ideas.
He's the one who set all the rules that we now know of in improv today. I know that I've studied at Claire's workshop of Second City before I met Del, and Paul Sills before I met Del, and never had I heard things about agreement and playing at the top of your intelligence and giving the gift. When I was taught at Claire's workshop, they told me that if you gave the other person information, that was a lay-on. And they told me not to do that. You know, it wasn't until I met Del that he was like, are you kidding? It's a gift to give the other person information. So he opened the secrets of the universe to us.
He was sort of a simple guy. If you saw him on the street, you'd think he was homeless. He and I used to grocery shop at the same 7-Eleven when we used to live over on Skull Street. So there's that.
Del was I was very scared of him. I was very intimidated by him. He had a big and booming voice.
He was definitely a presence, though. Like it was almost intimidating to take him as a teacher at times because you wanted to please him so well.
He had been reading something. He was always reading something that I'd never even heard of. And he came into class and he said, today we're gonna fall through the floor. And we all kind of looked at him blankly and didn't know what that meant. And he said, I don't know what that means either, but we're gonna do that.
He would spend the first hour talking about Iranian television. He was not on point necessarily there. He just wanted to fuck around and try on new shit. So there were classes you got on stage once a class.
Del would start his classes with something he had read that day, and that would be the inspiration for our work.
So if he was watching, I was watching Bill Moyers the other day on PBS, and he was talking about Joseph Campbell and the hero with 1,000 faces. Now, as I was thinking, and he would go on for 40 to 45 minutes.
And he would talk about this and how it made him think about the work. The next day he'd have been reading or writing horror comics. The next day he would have had some kind of drug jaunt with some old celebrity friend from the 60s.
Del had nothing to prove to you. He was really experimenting with long-form improv as a form. And you were in his class to be lab rats. And if you learned from it, you did. If you gained immunity by repeated exposure to it, then you're a super rat.
He could tell when something was just not going to work, and he would stop things before they got going in the wrong direction. He was very good at diagnosing things quickly.
He had such an incredible way of looking at the stage and what we could do and what's possible. And that I felt like anything, that in his mind, anything was possible. And I really did love his approach.
He wanted to get rid of artificiality. We sometimes do things because comedy tells us to do that, and he wanted to get rid of that and trust that it will still be funny.
It was frustrating at times. I'm not going to say it was, easy classes, and a lot of it was because where I was at, I was new, starting out.
There would be these harsh realities of him. At the time he was quitting smoking, or he had quit smoking, and he was using aversion therapy in the form of a really thick rubber band around his wrist that every now and then when he got a craving for a cigarette, he'd pull the rubber band back and snap it on his wrist to create pain and endorphins. So you'd be improvising a scene, and it might be an intimate moment or whatever, it was a focused moment, and you'd hear that snap and it would just jolt you from the reality. And it happened throughout class, like throughout the whole 8 weeks.
People would put up with him because it was Del Close. Now, if anybody else today got up for 40 to 45 minutes, I think you would get egged. People would throw tomatoes, they'd walk out of your class.
I'm not super anti-Del, but I'm one of the guys that'll tell you, the guy was a drug addict, you know what I mean? And he's, sobered up for a while, and, but he taught his class in a very rigid, dictatorial way, and also spread a lot of bad spirituality. I credit him for Women Aren't Funny, and I credit him for, you know, a lot of negative stuff like getting high and like tripping, you know, being a you know, a good way, you know, to get to a spiritual place. When I, you know, as the one student that picks up on that because I was a drug addict, you know, I thought, oh, you know, if I kill myself with drugs and alcohol, I'll be a better artist for it. I mean, I'm not blaming Del for my addiction. I'm just saying it spoke to me. The idea of your best art is in the darkest places in your soul.
And I think, you know, like a true artist that Del was, I think he, you know, after he died, I think he's certainly more appreciated.
I think he would be very amused to find out that he's far more important
Such a mythic
in death
creature
than he ever was in life. I think he'd be like, where the fuck were you the last couple of years of my life? I think he would be grateful that his words express so much resonance, and they do.
You know, I mean, I think that we've read a lot about him, and I think it is, and I do think it's important, and I would hope, I doubt it, but I would hope that Del would think I was a good teacher. I would hope that he would think I was fighting the good fight a little bit, but I'm not. I have no idea.